Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 23rd of February, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, I just got back from a NFT Melbourne event called NFT Mel, obviously in Melbourne City here, and it was interesting to say the least. It was actually hosted at I guess like a nightclub, and it was, I guess, very different vibe to what I'm used to. Definitely was not a crypto conference. It was like an NFT kind of like party with some talks, in between, kind of like the music playing and stuff like that. Definitely thought it was going to be something different and probably just not my scene at this stage in my life. That it wasn't like, as I said, it wasn't like a traditional kind of crypto Ethereum conference that I'm used to going to, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was like a bad thing, but it kind of like opened my eyes to just how different the NFT and kind of like crypto communities are and how like there's overlap there, but as I've been saying on the Refuel for I guess a while now, they are becoming or have become very distinct communities where they're doing their own thing, and there's overlap with kind of some things like DAOs and obviously some NFT stuff within DeFi. But for the most part, people getting involved with NFTs are a different breed. Like they're not really interested in DeFi, they're not interested in layer 2 stuff, they're not interested in core protocol stuff. And that's totally fine. Obviously, we can't expect everyone to be interested in everything that Ethereum has to offer. But yeah, it was just kind of like an interesting event to attend, that was for sure. Maybe it's just because I'm old. I mean, I'm not old, but like because I'm turning into kind of like a boomer at 29 already here. But the event that I went to tonight, they were playing like really, really loud music. And I know how silly that sounds, but like I thought it was just going to be a place where you can go like chat to some people about NFTs and watch some talks and things like that. But it was mostly kind of like them playing music. You had to yell to talk to people. You might hear that in my voice. Like my voice is kind of like hurting a little bit tonight, and I am very tired, that's for sure. But and it kind of like was very hard to talk to anyone. But still, like, good to meet a few people there as well. A few kind of like Daily Gwei listeners and watchers. Really, really awesome to meet. Someone made a comment that they thought I was taller in real life than what I am. Guys, I'm like 5'9". I'm not a tall person, unfortunately. And my entire family on the male side, obviously the female side as well, is relatively kind of like average height. So definitely not some of those 6'4" monsters you see in crypto. I know Larry Cermak from the block is extremely tall. I don't know how tall exactly, but he's a giant, basically. I would look like a midget next to him, that's for sure. But other than that, yeah, as I said, like just a different vibe. Definitely was more of a kind of like club setting than a conference, and that's totally fine. But I am more about the Ethereum conferences and the crypto conferences and just going, watching talks, being able to talk to people without like music blaring there. I know there's after parties at conferences and things like that, but it's not part of the kind of like main event. But yeah, just something to keep in mind, I think, in that like just how different kind of like the NFT and general crypto Ethereum communities are at this point in time, and how that's not necessarily a bad thing because of the fact that this is what mainstream adoption looks like. Mainstream adoption is not going to look like everyone being interested in what's happening with Ethereum core protocol development. There are probably only like a few hundred people, not even that understand what dank sharding is at the moment. And there's only probably kind of like a bit more than that actually care to understand what it is. And at the end of the day, like, do any of us care to understand about the latest standards coming out for like the internet protocols? No, not really. I mean, I don't read them. I don't read the RFCs or anything like that. RFC stands for request for comment. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's like an EIP, but it's kind of like the same vein where you kind of like propose a change and then people kind of like give feedback on it and they kind of look at it and see what's going on with it. But yeah, I don't do that because I'm just not interested in it, right? So I think the beauty of Ethereum is always going to be the fact that there's just so much going on in the ecosystem, there's so much to do, and that there are going to be very, very distinct communities. And they're going to be communities that just use Ethereum as a tool. They don't even give a shit about Ethereum. They're just using it because that's the best tool to use for them to do what they want to do. Right now for NFTs, it means it's all happening on Ethereum. So you're going to use Ethereum to do that. You don't have to even care about Ethereum. You don't have to even care about ETH. But, you still, if you're doing transactions on Ethereum, you're burning ETH. So it doesn't matter if you don't care about it or not, right? But yeah, anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Moving on to a bunch of the updates from the last 24 hours. So we have a really awesome thread from the Coinbase Cloud account here, which is the, I guess, like Twitter account and also the team at Coinbase that handles the staking kind of like services that they provide. Obviously, including ETH2 staking, but also including, a lot of other kind of protocols out there that have staking. Now, Coinbase Cloud was basically formed after Coinbase acquired Bison Trails, and Bison Trails has been around for quite a while. So this is not a new team by any means. The expertise is there. They understand the importance of client diversity on Ethereum, and they kind of put together this thread showing that. So you can read this thread for yourself, but I guess like the main nugget is in this first tweet where they said 24% and growing of ETH2 validators on Coinbase Retail do not use Prism, making Coinbase one of the most diversified staking pools in the market. Additionally, Coinbase uses multiple ETH2 staking providers to maximize security and client distribution. So, I mean, it's a good effort, don't get me wrong. It's still obviously too high. And it is obviously growing the number here. But if you flip that around, it's 76% use Prism. So that's still too high. It's still way higher than the 66%, which is the super majority. And then obviously we want to get that below 50% ideally. So it's progress. It's okay. And they say it's growing, which is fine. But again, it's nothing to kind of like write home about just yet, but we're going to see how that kind of like evolves and changes. And then in the rest of the thread, they go through their rationale of why they used Prism at the start, and it basically was because Prism offered kind of like the best experience for them to kind of like to go with, and specifically around the fact that apparently Prism at the time was the only viable client supporting remote signers. Now, I saw a comment from I think Ben Edgington that writes the What's New in ETH2 newsletter saying that I believe that Teku also supported this on day one, not just Prism. But I think, you know, taking all the kind of like other things into account, it's kind of like makes sense why Coinbase went with Prism instead of Teku. Prism was much more well known. It was more trusted. Not to say that Teku is a bad client. It certainly isn't. It's an amazing client, but they just were way less known at the time than Prism. And even today, they're probably less known than Prism is today. Yeah, and then they go on to say that they're kind of like working on, you know, adding Lighthouse support from Sigma Prime and things like that. So yeah, I mean, they're listening, right? I mean, we have been talking about the client diversity stuff pretty hardcore over the last few months. I know that I've mentioned it a lot. I know that I've mentioned one person in the community, Superphiz. He's been doing amazing work on this, and I actually going to credit him with a lot of this. He's gotten us to the point where we're actually getting responses from these places now. Before he was starting to kind of like talk about this and bring it up in a big way, really no one was kind of like looking at it, talking about it. And I think it actually embodies one of the best things about the Ethereum community is that no matter who you are, you can have a voice, you can get something done, you can push things to happen. Superphiz, I mean, he's not just no one, right? He's obviously a big part of the Ethereum community. He spends a lot of time with the Rocket Pool community and the ETH Staker community, and he runs a lot of stuff out of there, a lot of initiatives. But it's not like he has like all this all-knowing power. It's not like he's someone who can kind of like just centrally control anything and go in and say, you need to do this, you need to do that. He's just one guy that's been yelling about client diversity for a while now, but he's managed to move mountains, and it's actually awesome what he's done. So I'm giving, you know, a lot of credit to him. Obviously, there's been other people kind of like pushing this as well, not just him, but yeah, he's been one of the loudest proponents out there. And speaking of Superphiz, he posted something on Reddit today about a brief history of client diversity on the Beacon chain that I highly recommend you go and read and kind of like check out. It's not too long of a read here. You can kind of like just read through and then read through the comments and everything like that. But as I said, Superphiz has been the champion here. He really is the hero that we do not deserve, but we definitely need, right, to get this ball rolling here. But it seems to be rolling, that's for sure. And it seems like Coinbase actually cares to diversify their clients. Then, you know, it's going to take time for Coinbase to do it because they're a big organization. Same with the other centralized kind of like exchanges and staking service providers. But as I mentioned yesterday as well, I think the day before, Rocket Pool is out there now, guys. They're doing amazingly on the client diversity front, so stake with them. If you have less than 32 ETH, I'm sorry, but at this point in time, you know, if you're comfortable with the extra smart contract risk, which, to be honest, I would argue isn't that much extra, but if you're comfortable with the extra smart contract risk, you should be staking with Rocket Pool and not staking with a centralized service provider. Because, I mean, really, at the end of the day, if you're staking with Coinbase, you're taking the centralization risk. If you're staking with Rocket Pool, you're taking a bit of or in custody risk with Coinbase too, and you're taking a bit of kind of like smart contract risk. You've got to weigh up those risks for yourself. But me personally, if I was staking less than 32 ETH, I would never go with a centralized provider. I would go with Rocket Pool, hands down, every single time, even if there's a bit of extra smart contract risk there. I mean, I think that's an acceptable risk at this point in time. Not just because they respect client diversity, but because you're helping to do decentralized staking instead of just adding to the centralized stake, which, as I pointed out the other day, Coinbase and Kraken already have a pretty big share of the beacon chain. We don't need to be increasing that at this point, guys. We need to be spreading the love. We need to be spreading the stake out. Obviously, we don't want to centralize around Rocket Pool either, which is totally fine. But I mean, they're only 1% of validators right now. Let's jack them up. Let's get them to 5%. Let's get them to 10%. And kind of like, let's spread the love. You know, the funny thing is that if they've got like 2 or 3 decentralized staking pools out there, I mean, we really only have 1 today, but maybe in the future we have 2 or 3. I know Lido plans to kind of like decentralize over time, but we'll see what happens there. And then maybe another one enters the market. But you know, say we have 2 or 3, then we have like a bunch of centralized staking providers along with centralized exchanges. Maybe we have like 5 or so dominant ones there. Then we have all the solo stakers. Then we have the big enterprises staking on you know, in a solo way, but also kind of like doing it as like a hybrid approach. We can get to a very, very healthy ecosystem, both on the client diversity front, but also on the decentralization of the stake front. So I'm super pumped to see how that plays out, especially once withdrawals are enabled, and it makes it easier for people to kind of like chop and change and get in and out whenever they want. But yeah, great to see this thread from Coinbase Cloud, and definitely go give this post from Superphiz a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so I was right about zkSync's news yesterday, how I said that it wasn't a token, it was going to be something like the zkEVM testnet going live, and that's what went live yesterday. This is an absolutely massive achievement, guys. Like, I mean, the fact that we have a zkEVM on testnet already is huge. And obviously zkSync has been working on this for quite a while. They're not the only one working on it, but they seem to be first to market in terms of on a testnet. Now, I'm sure Polygon's solutions aren't far behind. They've been teasing them coming in Q1, Q2 as well. But yeah, just great to see that zkSync has launched the first EVM compatible zk rollup on a public testnet. Now, there is a lot of information in their blog post about exactly what they've launched, you know, what they haven't launched. They've also got a new kind of like portal where you can see, or a new ecosystem hub where you can see the projects that are live on the network right now, and the projects that are coming soon. So there obviously isn't too much that's live right now to play around with. You guys know about Zigzag Exchange that I've spoken about plenty of times before. Orbiter Finance, I talked about them yesterday as a bridge. You know, the Graph's live. I mean, really for end users, there's not too much live just yet. But I mean, this is a testnet, guys. Like, relax. We're not at mainnet yet. And then you can kind of sort. You can go click DeFi. You can see what's live. As I said, Zigzag is, but there's a bunch of others that seem to be, you know, moving to zkSync, zkEVM, but they're not live yet. But still, it's great to see this portal, very similar to the other portals that we've seen in the Layer 2 space before, but great to see this. And then, you know, in the rest of the blog post, they talk about kind of like, you know, the fact that they wanted to get infrastructure in place before they spun this up, infrastructure such as fiat on and off ramps and bridges and oracles and all that good stuff there. The state of the rollup, so what they've actually delivered as part of this testnet. So with this release, they're supporting a bunch of really cool features, native support for ESDSA signatures. So unlike the first version of zkSync and most of the zk rollups, no special operation is required to register the user's private key. Any account can be managed in L2 with the same private key that is used for L1. Seamless onboarding. Solidity support, of course, Web3 API, support for Ethereum cryptographic primitives, which, you know, all the popular ones. Hard hat plugin, and L1 to L2 smart contract messaging, which allows developers to pass data from Ethereum L1 to smart contracts on zkSync, providing required information to run various smart contracts. So we have L1 to L2 composability. And then there are a bunch of features coming down the pipeline that aren't live yet, such as L2 to L1 smart contract messaging, which will allow developers to pass data from zkSync to L1, once again allowing developers to build more robust applications. So imagine being able to tap into L1 liquidity from L2. Very, very cool. Support for the Viper programming language, account abstraction, support for older versions of Solidity, and of course, zk Porter, which is their premier kind of like solution, which has off-chain data availability, sort of like a Validium, and allows for greater scalability. So if you're a developer, get started with everything. There's a portal for developers and all that sort of stuff there. A lot of different links in this post that you can go check out as well, just around everything. I'm super excited by this. This came out like shortly after the refuel went live yesterday, of course, and I actually stayed up for this, and this is part of the zkSync 2.0 effort. But yeah, I mean, the testnet, mainnet, I'm assuming is going to go live sometime this year now that the testnet is live. I'm just so excited. I mean, look at all the stuff that we have right now, guys, in the L2 space. Just like take a breather here and just look at all the stuff that's live. Go to L2 Beat, check it out. And it's not just live in a fashion where no one's using it. People are using it. People are getting a ton of value out of it. People are super excited about all of it. People are building on it. That's the main thing. I've highlighted how many people are actually building on these things. And I'm not just talking about porting something over from Ethereum layer 1 to kind of like these layer twos, which is all well and fine. Like that's totally fine. But building new products on these layer twos is what gets me most excited. I mean, it's cool that like Uniswap is on Arbitrum and Optimism and everything like that, or Uniswap V3 and on Polygon POS chain and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, I've used Uniswap on Ethereum L1. We all know and love Uniswap. It's there. It's been there for a while. It does what it does. But what can we do with this new technology? What can Uniswap do? Maybe Uniswap V4 takes advantage of the new L2 capabilities, such as basically instant confirmation of transactions, which allows for much faster updating of things, much cheaper fees, of course, as well. Being able to optimize in different ways on the L2s than you couldn't do on L1. So there's so many new things that can be played around with, and there's just so many apps that are not ever going to be on L1 and are going to be deployed natively to L2 that take advantage of all of this. So that's what I'm most excited about, and whether that's on an EVM compatible L2 or something like StarkNet or whatever else we've got coming down the pipeline, that is what gets me most excited in this industry at this point in time. Like, I mean, I've been around for quite a while now. Obviously, different things are going to excite different people. Maybe you're still super excited by a lot of the DeFi apps that that I'm kind of used to. That's totally fine, guys. I mean, at this point in time, like as I regularly say, I'm a DeFi boomer, but only because I've been around for what feels like forever. And there's not that much things that I see that actually pique my interest, but I'm seeing a lot on L2 that really pique my interest. And as I pointed out before, there are directories you can go on, there are portals you can go on. The StarkNet roundup from Swagdamus Prime is a really great way to keep up with the StarkNet ecosystem. And yeah, I mean, I keep up with it as best as I can and relay it onto you guys on the Refuel, but there's just so much happening, so much cool things being built, and I guess congrats to zkSync, I guess Matter Labs on releasing the first zkEVM testnet. Very, very massive achievement, and I can't wait to see them get to mainnet. All right, and I guess like as a 2-for-1 here, there was a new AMM protocol that is launching to zkSync 2.0. It is launched in a testnet fashion called Mute. So you can go to testnet.switch.mute.io and you can kind of like test out their AMM platform, their farming platform, and their IDO platform. Now, I haven't tried this out for myself. Please use it at your own risk and everything like that. Do not trust it with like a large amount of money at this point, or anything like that. I know it's only on testnet, but like, I mean, like, once it got to mainnet, once it gets to mainnet, don't trust it with kind of like too much, because it is a brand new protocol from what I can see. I don't know if it's actually a fork or not. It might be a fork of something, but because I'm going to assume it's kind of like a brand new thing or a fork and it's been modified, you want to play safe there as well. But very, very cool to see something or an AMM already live there. I'm sure other ones like Uniswap and SushiSwap and Curve and all that sort of stuff are going to come eventually, but these native things are definitely, as I said, something that is particularly interesting to me. All right, so Polygon has launched something called Finity, which is Polygon's user-first system of design elements, which empowers teams to quickly prototype, launch, and scale their dApps without compromising on aesthetics and usability. So this is basically like a design SDK or a design kind of like pack for people to kind of like focus on creating beautiful user experiences and I guess like UI experiences. Why I'm highlighting this is because this is the kind of stuff that I think Polygon just goes above and beyond to do. No other ecosystem really focuses on this. It's kind of like put on the developers of the apps to focus on this and to do it in their own kind of like way, but that's not exactly scalable. There are a lot of kind of, I guess, teams out there they don't want to have to worry too much about, coming up with the custom design and kind of like dealing with all the jargon and dealing with all the stuff that we're kind of used to, but like their newer users probably aren't used to, and they just want to kind of like build something really, really nice to use and really intuitive to use. Well, that's what Polygon's offering with Finity. So I think this is really cool. I think if you can go check out this blog post for more information on this, you can click through and everything like that and check it out, especially if you're a designer. But yeah, as I said, this is just another way that kind of Polygon goes above and beyond compared to other ecosystems in order to onboard as many people as possible, whether they be users, developers, whoever. And this is the stuff that kind of like we need to get to that mass adoption. I mean, look, some of the interfaces out there, or maybe most of the interfaces out there of these DeFi apps are so confusing that it's never going to get mass adoption. So that's well and good for the advanced users. They can use that. They can do everything with that. But we need simple interfaces for people to interact with. It doesn't have to be like completely dumb, but it needs to be like 1 to 2 clicks and they're doing what they're doing. The jargon needs to be gone. The I guess like the kind of like things like what was it? Kind of approving a token and then having to do another transaction to swap. That has to be gone. That's all coming down the pipeline, but we're never going to achieve mass adoption in the current state of DeFi. That's for sure. And I think that honestly, most people will interact with DeFi via third parties and centralized intermediaries, which is totally fine, I believe, for reasons I've outlined before about how DeFi improves on the existing system in so many ways. It doesn't even matter that kind of like ends up that way. Because look, if you go to, I guess like, I don't know, Aave right now as a money market. Aave's interface isn't bad, but like imagine going to that interface as a completely new user. You'd have absolutely no idea what to do. No idea. What's a health factor? I mean, I know they have tooltips and things like that, but like it's scary for new users, guys. The most simple DeFi interface we have right now is Uniswap, I would say, where it's a simple kind of thing where you swap. I say simple, but no, that's not. New users look at that and it's like, okay, what's this? What's the swap? What's slippage? What's blah blah blah? Oh, I have to sign a transaction, or I have to approve a token. Then I have to swap, and what's this weird MetaMask pop up? Guys, like honestly, that's just not the way we're going to get to mass adoption. So yeah, as I said, really cool to see this from Polygon and focusing on the UI UX element, which I believe more of the ecosystem needs to focus on, because if we don't, we're never going to get to mass adoption, as I said. All right, so Immutable has announced today that starting today, marketplaces powered by Immutable X will be able to set their own custom fees on Immutable X trades. This is a critical step forward in incentivizing the best NFT marketplaces in the world to build on Ethereum's leading L2 for NFTs. So the TLDR is that once live, you can anticipate the following. Any marketplace will be able to set their own fees on orders. Market.immutable.com and other NFT marketplaces like Token Trove have begun the implementation process already. So obviously this applies to developers mainly to get these kind of like things live, but this is good. I mean, you want custom fees on these marketplaces. You don't just want a flat fee. You want competition on fees. You want fees to get, as close to zero as possible while still being able to provide profitability for the marketplaces, because obviously no one's going to run a marketplace if the fees are zero, right? Like, especially if they have to pay for L1 fees as well. Like, as I've talked about before, the L1 fees that these L2s have to pay can come from anywhere, but usually it would come from either charging the user the fee directly as a gas fee, quote unquote, or basically taking fees on a marketplace of sorts or like a trading platform of sorts and using that to cover the cost. Like DYDX does that when they kind of like take trading fees and then use a portion of that trading fees in order to pay for their L1 gas fees. And the same is going to be true for NFT marketplaces on Immutable. So very, very cool to see this from the Immutable X team here. All right, so Lyra has announced that they've partnered up with Hop Protocol to provide seamless bridging from Ethereum mainnet to Optimism. The integration provides a significant improvement in the onboarding experience to L2. So this has been designed for a quote-unquote multi-chain future. So in just a few minutes, traders can move ETH from Ethereum mainnet to Optimism without leaving Lyra. So this is a direct integration in the Lyra app, which is an options protocol that I've spoken about before, and you won't need to leave at all. So what's next? Well, they'll be adding the capability to bridge from other L2s like Arbitrum and Polygon. That's awesome. Like right in the app, you'll be able to be like, oh, you know what? I want to use Lyra, but Lyra's only on Optimism right now, and I got some funds on Arbitrum. All right, I'm going to bridge over from Arbitrum to Lyra without having to Optimism to use it in Lyra without having to actually leave the Lyra app. That again, what I was talking about before about ease of usability. This is one of those things, guys. Like, UI UX is such an absolutely massive field, and there are so many things that can be done that you wouldn't even think about to improve the user experience, and this is one of them. I mean, just having a simple kind of like button to bridge in right in the app without having to go somewhere else vastly improves the user experience and reduces the amount of clicks that they have to make and reduces the amount of things and decisions they have to kind of like think about, which is what we want to get to. We want to make it so that we don't want to dumb it down too much, but we want to make it so easy and so seamless that people don't even think twice about it. It's just like, oh yeah, I'll do this, do that, blah, 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 and get their kind of like job done there without having to complicate things. So very, very cool to see this from Hop and Lyra, and looking forward to further integrations here. So the zkRollups account on Twitter have another thread about all the latest, I guess, projects that they have listed that are building on StarkNet. So as I mentioned before, there are resources out there to see what projects are building on what when it comes to L2s. Well, zkRollups.xyz is one of the best resources out there. Like, I mean, you can see here, they have a directory of all the projects building on ZK Tech. They've got kind of like, you can see what rollups are being built, what wallets are being built. You can kind of like sort here, infra, dApps, NFTs. This is kind of like your one-stop shop right now, guys, in order to see what's being built on zkRollups specifically. This does not include Optimism and Arbitrum and any other optimistic rollups, of course, only zkRollups, but still, you can see everything that's being built here. Now, this thread, which I'll link in the YouTube description, gives you a full breakdown of all the projects or the latest projects building on StarkNet. And there are quite a few, guys. I mean, as I mentioned before, the StarkNet ecosystem is one of the fastest growing ones out there. Very, very cool to see them growing not only on kind of like people migrating their apps from, I guess, Ethereum L1 to StarkNet, but also new apps being deployed there that we haven't seen on L1 before. As I said before, that's what I'm most excited about. Very, very cool to see this. So definitely go check out this thread and check out zkRollups.xyz for a full breakdown of all the apps building on zkRollups. All right, finally here, we have a tweet from Tim Connors who said, our ETH Denver hack project, DAO versus DAO on-chain chess. Each member can vote on what move to make next. Next, the game state is saved to the blockchain. We call it dual DAO. This is really cool. Obviously, this is not going to work on Ethereum Layer 1 because it's going to be super expensive. That's going to be one expensive chess match. But this is going to work on Layer 2, like in a really, really awesome way. And this reminds me of something like Twitch Plays Pokemon, which was this phenomenon a few years ago. Actually, it was quite a while ago now, where a developer put together a kind of like a system where the, I guess, Twitch chat would input kind of like what direction to move and what buttons to press on Pokemon, and then the bot would do that, and everyone had to work together to actually advance in the game. You can imagine the chaos that happened and ensued from that. So this is, I guess, similar, but it's kind of like a voting mechanism where each member can vote on what move to make next. It's kind of like the wisdom of the crowds here, and then the game state is saved to the blockchain. As I said, really, really cool. Not going to work on L1 just because of the gas fees, but will definitely work on L2, and it'll work a lot smoother on L2 as well, not just because of the cheaper fees, but I mean, honestly, this is the kind of thing that can be done on an L2 as a Validium, where the data can actually be stored off-chain. It doesn't need to be stored on-chain because you don't need super high security for DAO versus DAO on-chain chess, unless the stakes are really high. Maybe you have like $1 million pot that people want to kind of like play with and kind of like are going to win, well, then maybe you bring that on-chain. But in most cases, you can do it as part of like a Validium construction where you have off-chain data, and then the fees can basically be zero, like or near zero, and you can have as many moves as you want going on. You can have as many games as you want going on. That's really, really cool. So again, this is the sort of stuff, as I said to you guys before, that is just not possible to build on Layer 1 because of one, I mean, it's too slow, even at like 15-second blocks or 13-second blocks, way too slow, and the gas fees are just stupidly high, which just wouldn't work. And this going on to Layer 2 is definitely what I want to see and what I love to see. So very, very cool little project here. I'm sure, I don't know if I've seen kind of like the ETH Denver hackathon projects, like a list of them just yet, but I'm sure that's coming soon or is somewhere out there. If you have a link to it, be sure to share it with me in the Discord channel. But I think on that note, that is going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.